How to be happy alone, the freedom of being well in your own company. There comes a time in life when we realize that happiness cannot be in someone else's hands. You can love, connect, and live beautiful moments with others. But if you depend on them to feel complete, you will live in a cage. Being happy alone isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's not about closing yourself off to love or friendships. It's about discovering that you are already whole, even without anyone by your side. Attachment makes us believe that without a certain person, place, or situation, life loses its meaning. But the truth is, when you free yourself from that need, you discover something powerful. Happiness isn't in who stays or who leaves. It's inside you. Today, I want you to understand that learning to be happy alone isn't a sign of loneliness, but of strength. And that detachment is the key to living with ease, freedom, and without the fear of losing. Understand that solitude is not an enemy. Many people are afraid of silence and of being alone because they confuse it with abandonment or rejection. But solitude, when properly understood, is a sacred space for self-knowledge. It is in silence that you hear your own voice without the noise of others' opinions. It is in alone time that you understand what you truly like, what inspires you, what bothers you, and what needs to change. If you constantly run from solitude, you end up living on distractions, always needing something or someone to fill the void you feel. But when you learn to appreciate it, you discover that this void is in fact fertile ground where new things can be born. Solitude is not the absence of love, it is the presence of yourself. Detachment is not a lack of love, it is freedom. There is a great misconception about detachment. Many people believe that detaching means stopping loving or abandoning what you love. But this is far from the truth. Detachment means continuing to love, but without dependency. It means caring, but without imprisoning yourself. Attachment is born from fear. Fear of losing, fear of being alone, fear of not finding something similar. And the problem with fear is that it distorts love, turning it into possession. And when love turns into possession, it loses its purity and becomes an invisible cage. When you practice detachment, you are not closing the door to people or experiences. You are simply leaving them free to stay or leave. And that freedom is a silent test. Those who want to stay will stay by choice, not out of obligation. Detachment gives you back control of your inner peace, because you stop desperately clinging to what is temporary and start living anchored in what is eternal, your essence. Remember, you can love deeply and at the same time know that if you need to, you can move on. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you free. Rebuilding the relationship with yourself. Being happy alone is, above all, winning back your own company. And this requires a process of reconnection, something that, for many people, is painful at first, because they realize how much they have drifted away from themselves over time. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly listened to yourself? When was the last time you spent an entire day taking care of yourself, without guilt and without rushing? Many people live waiting for someone to offer them love, when in reality they need to learn to offer it to themselves first. You need to be your own support, your own source of motivation, your own safe place. Start small. Reserve moments to be alone, without distractions. Write about your feelings and dreams. Discover hobbies and activities that bring you joy, even without anyone else around. When you start treating yourself the way you would treat someone you love, something changes. Your self-esteem grows, your confidence increases, and the need to seek validation from others decreases. The result is simple. You stop begging for crumbs and start overflowing. And someone who overflows attracts healthier relationships because they no longer accept less than they deserve. The invisible weight of expectations. A large part of the pain we feel comes from a single source: unrealistic expectations. We expect someone to complete us, a relationship to save us, or another person's presence to heal our wounds. But when these expectations are not met, frustration, bitterness, and a feeling of abandonment follow. The truth is that no one came to complete you because you were born whole. What people can do is add to your life, but not fill what, in its essence, should already be complete. When you let go of expectations, you start to see life as it is, and not as you would like it to be. And this doesn't mean giving up, but rather accepting reality so that from it you can create something new. Too many expectations suffocate relationships. When you live expecting someone else to be responsible for your happiness, you turn them into a prisoner of a role they can never fulfill. Detachment here is not only letting go of people, but also of the burden of expecting them to be everything you need. When you understand this, frustration decreases and freedom increases. Silence as a tool for healing. We live surrounded by noise, not just the physical noise of the streets, phones, televisions, and incessant notifications, but also the inner noise, that voice that never stops, repeating worries, doubts, fears, and memories. For many people, being alone is unbearable precisely because of this noise. They are afraid of silence because, in silence, there are no distractions. And without distractions, everything that was swept under the rug of consciousness begins to appear. But what few people understand is that silence is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It's not empty. Silence is the space where you begin to hear what truly matters. It's where you find the answers that don't come from social media, friends, or family, but from something much deeper, from your own essence and, for those who believe, from the voice of God. Silence is uncomfortable at first because it puts us face to face with the truth. And the truth, when it hasn't been healed, can hurt. That's why most people run to noise. They turn on the TV without even paying attention, listen to loud music all the time, or seek out people just to avoid being alone. But this behavior is like putting a bandage over an infected wound. It might hide it for a while, but it doesn't heal it. When you start to allow yourself to be in silence, something magical happens. First, you feel restless, as if something is missing. Then you realize that, in fact, nothing is missing. You were just used to always being busy, distracted, and connected to the external world. And little by little, silence stops being scary and starts to be comforting. Silence is also the birthplace of mental clarity. It's in silence that you can reorganize your thoughts, understand your emotions, and make decisions with more wisdom. Without silence, everything becomes confusing because the voices from the outside mix with the voices from the inside, and you no longer know which one is really yours. If you want to be happy alone, you need to turn silence into an ally. Reserve moments in your day to simply be with yourself, without your phone, without music, without television. At first, it might be difficult to endure 5 minutes, but over time, those minutes will turn into hours that you will value more than anything else. Remember, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of yourself. And it's in that presence that you find healing, peace, and the strength to live without depending on anyone to feel complete. The art of finding wholeness within yourself. Being happy alone is an art that few people allow themselves to learn, and that art begins with the conscious decision to look inward. When you learn to find wholeness within yourself, you take a fundamental step toward emotional freedom. It's not that being with others is unimportant, it's valuable and enriches our existence. But the difference lies in not depending on it to validate who you are. Imagine a goblet full of crystal clear water sparkling under the sun. That goblet is you, with your pure essence, your qualities, your passions. Now imagine that you depend on someone else's water to be full. What if that person is late or doesn't show up? The goblet remains empty, dry and dull. Now imagine that this goblet is naturally full because you filled it on your own, with self-knowledge, self-love and acceptance. In this condition, any water someone else offers is always an extra, a gift, and not a necessity for your survival. Finding wholeness within yourself is not something that happens overnight. It is a process of rediscovery, of emotional cleansing, of healing the wounds you carry. It is an invitation to look in the mirror and see not only your imperfections, but the strength, beauty, and resilience that already exist within you. When you live this wholeness, you learn to enjoy your own company. Silence stops being a source of fear and becomes a source of comfort. Moments alone stop being empty and become full of meaning. And this wholeness is what creates a natural magnetic field that attracts people, opportunities, and experiences aligned with your true essence. Because only when you are whole can you truly share and build something real with another person. The strength of self-knowledge, the path to emotional independence. If there is one powerful thing for being truly happy alone, it's self-knowledge. To know yourself deeply, to understand your emotions, your boundaries, your values, and your desires is the basis of emotional freedom and healthy detachment. Often, the search for companionship or relationships ends up being a reflection of the lack of this connection with yourself. You try to fill a space that you don't even really know what it is, because you haven't yet explored what exists inside you. Self-knowledge is not just an exercise in reflection, but a courageous journey into your own universe. It's asking yourself, who am I when no one is looking? What truly makes me happy? What do I need to feel at peace? These questions may seem simple, but the answer is not always easy. Society and past experiences condition us to seek external answers. And that's why many people live in a constant state of disconnection from themselves. When you decide to look inward without masks or escapes, you begin to notice behavioral patterns, limiting beliefs, and emotional wounds that were previously hidden. It is a process that requires courage, as unearthing pain can be uncomfortable, but it is necessary to heal and grow. The beauty of self-knowledge is that it gives you the autonomy to choose who you want to be, instead of being controlled by external fears and expectations. You begin to build your own narrative, based on the truth of what you feel and want, and not on what others expect of you. When you know yourself, it becomes easier to say no to what doesn't serve you, yes to what feeds your soul, and to distance yourself from what only brings wear and tear. You start to become your own safe harbor, and this emotional independence is the key to being happy alone. Don't wait for someone to complete you. Come and complete yourself every day with love, respect, and dedication. This is an act of courage and self-love, and the first step toward a full and authentic life. Building self-esteem that doesn't depend on others. Self-esteem is one of the most solid foundations for happiness in solitude, but I'm not talking about that superficial self-esteem that is based on external praise or social approval. I'm talking about true self-esteem, which comes from the deep recognition of your worth, regardless of what others think or say. When you live seeking approval, you end up placing your happiness in the hands of others, and this creates constant instability. Today you feel good because you received a compliment. Tomorrow you feel bad because someone didn't meet your expectations. This emotional roller coaster is exhausting and prevents you from being happy alone. Building solid self-esteem is about looking in the mirror and accepting yourself with all your imperfections, flaws, and stories. It's about forgiving your mistakes, celebrating your achievements, and treating yourself with kindness, even on difficult days. It's understanding that you are worthy of love and respect simply for being who you are. This building doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires daily practice, patience, and above all, truth with yourself. It's learning to silence the inner voices that criticize and replace them with words that comfort and strengthen. True self-esteem creates an invisible shield against the need for others' approval, allowing you to live fully in your own company. It is this self-love that allows you to be alone and still feel complete. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to deserve to be happy. You deserve to be happy because you are you, with all your colors, shadows, and lights. The transformation that comes from forgiveness, freeing yourself from the past. One of the greatest barriers to being happy alone and living in full detachment lies in the hurts and resentments we carry. Unhealed wounds are anchors that chain us to old pains, making true emotional freedom impossible. Forgiving is not forgetting, nor is it justifying what was done. Forgiveness is a powerful decision to release the weight you carry. It's allowing your soul to breathe without the burden of the past. It is a gift you give yourself, a liberation that makes room for genuine peace and happiness. Often, we hold grudges because we believe it protects us, as if resentment were armor. But this armor ends up being an invisible prison that prevents the arrival of new experiences and personal growth. Forgiveness is an act of courage and self-love. When you forgive, even in silence to yourself, you are choosing your emotional freedom over pain. You are telling your heart, I deserve peace. I choose to live with ease. By forgiving, you not only free yourself from the past, but you also become stronger to be well alone. Because no one can steal your happiness when it is anchored in your ability to free yourself from the chains of resentment. Free yourself today from what holds you back. Allow yourself to start over without heavy baggage, with a light heart, and open to what the present has to offer. Cultivating emotional self-sufficiency. The path to lasting happiness. We have reached an essential point. Being happy alone is not just a fleeting state, but a continuous construction that requires emotional self-sufficiency. Emotional self-sufficiency does not mean isolation or rejection of others. It means having the necessary resources within you to face life's challenges without depending exclusively on someone else to restore your balance. It is being able to take care of your own soul, like a dedicated gardener who waters, prunes, and cultivates their garden every day. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, you can embrace the joys of life with more intensity and endure difficulties with more resilience. You don't give in to the anxiety of absence, nor the anguish of waiting. Your happiness is a river that flows from the inside out, constant, even if external circumstances change. Building this self-sufficiency requires practice and patience. It's learning to identify your emotions, embracing them without judgment, and finding healthy ways to express them. It's setting clear boundaries and respecting your own feelings and needs. And above all, it's developing the deep confidence that you are enough, that your presence in the world is already valuable, that you are worthy of love and happiness simply for being who you are. This self-sufficiency makes space for true detachment, the kind that doesn't hurt or trap, but that liberates. Because when you are enough for yourself, there is no fear of loss, no anxiety about absence. Being happy alone is being whole. It is being free, and this freedom is the greatest gift you can give yourself. The daily choice to be happy in your own company. The happiness you seek is not in another person, in a relationship, or in external circumstances. It is within you, waiting to be discovered, embraced, and cultivated. Learning to be happy alone is an act of courage, a path of self-discovery and liberation. It's embracing yourself with all your shadows and lights, accepting your imperfections, and recognizing your unconditional worth. This journey is not easy, but it is the most transformative one you can take, because when you find wholeness within yourself, no external emptiness can shake you. Today, choose to love yourself first. Choose to look inward with kindness. Choose to free yourself from the chains of attachment and create space for true emotional freedom. You don't need to wait for anyone to show up to be happy. You don't need permission to be whole. You are enough, exactly as you are. If this message touched your heart, like it to spread this light to more people who need to hear this today. Subscribe to the Light in the Infinite channel to continue receiving powerful reflections that awaken your best version. Share this video with someone you know who needs this message of freedom and self-love. Remember, true happiness begins when you become your own best friend. And that friendship is a lighthouse that never goes out. It illuminates your path and inspires those around you.